what caused the explosions at the Nord Stream pipelines, which resulted in its sabotage? This happens to be one of the biggest geopolitical mysteries of our times. With West and Russia blaming each other, the truth remains elusive. So what really happened? And who could be behind the sabotage? Now, WION has accessed some open source intelligence to give you a glimpse to try and get some more clarity so that we can unravel the mystery. Our next report gets you more details. 6 months ago, bubbles were visible in central Baltic Sea. Below it were two pipelines made of high-quality steel coated on the inside and outside and a stabilizing concrete coat. The pipeline was built to carry Russian gas to Europe over a distance of 1,224 kilometers. But in September 2022, 3 blasts took place, rupturing the pipelines. Fingers were quickly pointed towards Moscow, but it made no sense as to why Russia would want to cut off its own pipelines, which were sending gas to Europe and enabling it to earn precious revenue after it was heavily sanctioned. The blame soon shifted to the United States. American investigative journalist Seymour Hersh put out a report that stated that Washington could be behind the attacks. This was a claim that was soon rubbished by the Americans.
We still do believe it was an act of sabotage. The United States was not involved in any way, contrary to some press reporting out there.
Ever since then, new clues have emerged which have only made the waters murkier. The latest piece of the puzzle is a Danish naval vessel, which days before the Nord Stream blast made suspicious movements near the site of the sabotage. The ship made an unusual trip near the Baltic island of Bornholm and then travelled to the outer fringe of Denmark's estimated radar range. Then it paused and switched off its transponder, vanishing for several hours from international tracking systems. The truth remains hidden inside the depth of the Baltic Sea. Multiple probes are on, but pinpointing the perpetrator is a tough task. Denmark, Sweden, and Germany have all launched similar probes. The Americans too have been seen around the area looking for clues. Again, just 2 months before the blast, NATO and its allies met in the Baltic Sea to conduct the Baltops 22 exercises. At the center of the exercise is the aircraft carrier USS Kearsarge with its hundreds of troops. Then reports emerged pointing towards a pro-Ukrainian group, but the cautiously crafted report said that US officials had no evidence implicating Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the pipeline sabotage. This sailing boat is cited as tangible proof by the German sleuths. Andromeda, a recreational sailing yacht, made trips around the scene of crime. German investigators found traces of explosives on board, while the occupants used forged passports. But the paper trail led to a Ukrainian national who had hired the yacht. Kiev has denied any role in the sabotage. And now Denmark has invited the Russian-controlled operator of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to help salvage an unidentified object that was found close to the Baltic Sea pipelines. Unraveling this mystery is a sleuth's nightmare, but the truth is out there. As Sherlock Holmes would have only said, it's elementary, Watson. But vested interests and intense rivalries are only deepening the mystery. Bureau Report, WION, World is One. All right, now to give us more perspective about this entire controversy that is playing out, we're being joined by Peter Kuzniak, who's a professor of history and director of Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Professor, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us. The question I want to ask you is this: will the saboteurs of the Nord Stream pipeline blast ever be found out?
Well, we don't know if they're going to be known. We know that several governments are conducting investigations, and they have not made their findings public. That in itself is very suspicious. We know that from the very beginning, the U.S. government dismissed Sy Hersh's contention that this was U.S. sabotage. The White House said this is utterly false and complete fiction. Russia and China have been calling for UN investigation. They have not gotten Western support for this investigation. So I think that right after this happened, the United States, Poland, and Ukraine all said the Russians probably blew up their own pipeline. Nobody believed that. That was crazy. That meant there was no reason for the Russians to do that. So the whole thing is very suspicious. Will it ever be known? Hopefully, yes. And hopefully the United Nations will begin an independent investigation and we'll find out what these other countries have discovered that they don't want released to the public.
Interesting, Professor. And also, do you think that the probe has been hampered due to a lack of trust between Russia and the United States?
I think the probe is hampered mostly by the fact that the United States doesn't want the truth to come out. It's against U.S. interests for the truth to come out, especially if the U.S. was behind this. Seymour Hersh, who is a very, very good, internationally renowned investigative reporter, has said that this was a U.S. Navy operation, Navy divers they placed the explosives during the Baltops 22 NATO exercises in June of 2022. Seymour Hersh has a detailed expose. People have challenged certain elements of Seymour Hersh's story about the minesweepers not being in the area, about certain things about Jens Stoltenberg, head of NATO. But we need to study this. We need to investigate it. Hersh is a trustworthy journalist.
Very interesting. And also, Professor, who do you think could in fact be behind the Nord Stream blasts?
In my opinion, the most likely culprit is sadly the United States, my own government. It was on February 7th, right after his meeting with the German Chancellor Scholz, that Biden said to the press, said if Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine, there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. Then the reporters asked how, and Biden says, I promise you, we will be able to do it. 20 days earlier, Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland, a notorious neoconservative, said, I want to be very clear to you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, after the bombing, said this offers tremendous strategic opportunity for years to come. Liz Truss, the former British Prime Minister, was gleeful about the explosion. The former Polish Prime Minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, tweeted a picture of the line with this phrase, "Thank you, USA." Who had the motive? Who had the ability? Who said they were going to do it? Clearly, the United States is the number one culprit. The United States has shown no interest in getting to the bottom of this. And so we understand why. Because if this comes out that the U.S. was behind this, I don't know if the U.S. was behind it. Nobody can know, really. But the circumstantial evidence suggests it. Maybe it was somebody else. Well, let's find out who it was.
Absolutely, indeed. At this moment, it's all circumstantial evidence. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kuzniak, for joining us from the United States and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.